Till German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt visited the site and began digging. They realized what was really at this site.
A sizable survey conducted in southeast Turkey in 1963 covered a location known as Gobekli Tepe, or Belly Hill. Researchers discovered shattered limestone slabs strewn in several directions near the summit of the slope. They noted it at the time, thinking it was simply a medieval graveyard, and carried on.
He discovered was mind-blowing. After discovering the first T-shaped pillar buried at the site, he soon found more of these massive structures.
A German archaeologist called Klaus Schmidt explored the site once more only in 1994. Unlike predecessors, he sensed something unusual right away. He thought it went well beyond a place of burial. Schmidt knew at a way the site was a large Stone Age construction. His concerns were validated as digs started, and the results exceeded all expectations. Researchers found megaliths weighing as much as 50 tons and standing up to 18 feet tall beneath the surface of the hill. Covering in complex carvings of humanoid characters, animals, and abstract symbols, these enormous stones were set in circular configurations. More shockingly, carbon dating revealed Gobekli Tepe was constructed between 9,600 and 8,200 BCE, at least 5,000 years earlier than Stonehenge. This made this the most ancient megalithic site known worldwide. Who created it? The most important question was? We're 6,000 years before the invention of writing here, Schmidt said, as more riddles surfaced throughout the excavation.
There would be burials underneath the walls or underneath some of the pillars or so on, but so far they have not yet found any human remains at the site. There are no domestic plants in the site. There are only wild animal bones.
Researchers discovered proof of a permanent village in 2014, therefore refuting the theory that the builders were just nomadic hunter-gatherers. Rather, it proposed an early civilization existing before all known documentation. These folks were who, and why weren't they included in the annals of history? Although research is still under progress, just roughly 5% of the site has been dug. It is really delicate. More discoveries to come mean fresh understanding of this ancient civilization could soon surface. Among the most heated arguments is the reason they erected it. Some scholars think Gobekli Tepe was a religious place, maybe the first of its kind anywhere. Others speculate it may have been an early astronomical observatory, maybe aligned with the Sirius star. Schmidt even described it as the first human-built holy place and a cathedral on a hill. There are important ramifications for either theory. But in 2017, two researchers put out an even more revolutionary concept. Covering finely carved images of animals, figures, and symbols, chemical engineers Martin Sweatman and Dimitrios Tsikritsis started researching Gobekli Tepe's vulture stone, one of its most fascinating pillars. After extensively examining the vulture stone, the two guys felt they had identified what Sweatman had described as encoding some kind of information. They proposed that the creatures etched on the pillar stood for old constellations, a scorpion for Scorpio, a duck-like figure for Libra, a wolf for Lupus, and so on, arranged around a circular form in the middle, which represented the sun. Sweatman and Tsikritsis felt this implied the vulture stone was indicating a particular historical date. From their perspective, the engravings captured a moment when the constellation arrangement matched that displayed on the stone. But what exactly this occurrence was? They thought the stone had the response. Arguing around the top of the pillar, a sequence of square symbols with lines downward suggested comet debris descending to Earth. The figure without head at the bottom right corner stood for the impact's destruction and death toll. Published in Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry, their paper suggested that the vulture stone was a tribute to this devastating event. probably the worst calamity in human history since the end of the Ice Age. They employed computer programs to ascertain when the constellations would have matched the layout on the stone, therefore bolstering their argument. 3 probable dates: 4,350 BCE, 10,950 BCE, and 18,000 BCE were indicated by their calculations. The important fact was that 10,950 BCE precisely coincided with the Younger Dryas occurrence. During the 1,300-year Younger Dryas, which ran from around 12,900 to 11,600 years ago, the Earth saw a dramatic worldwide cooling that set off conditions reminiscent of the Ice Age. Mass damage worldwide, super tsunamis, catastrophic flooding, and wildfires so terrible they filled the sky with enough ash to blot out the sun, is shown by geological and archaeological records. Along with extensive animal extinctions, it changed the course of life on Earth. Although the Younger Dryas event is thoroughly recorded, scientists have never been quite clear about its origin. One of the most often proposed theories is that a comet broke apart in Earth's atmosphere and dispersed pieces all around the world. The biggest fragments are thought to have quickly vaporized the ice caps covering North America at the time, therefore upsetting the Earth's ecology. Sweatman and Socrates say the vulture stone at Gobekli Tepe exactly matches the constellations as they would have seen during the Younger Dryas period. They contend that this carving especially shows a comet impact and is a record of the event. Could this really be the case, as Sweatman said in an interview? I think this research, along with the recent finding of a widespread platinum anomaly across the North American continent, virtually seals the case in favor of a Younger Dryas comet impact. Was a comet really what caused the Younger Dryas event? And may the vulture stone at Gobekli Tepe be an ancient record of this disaster left behind by a vanished civilization? If so, what relevance this has to the subterranean cities across Turkey and close to Gobekli Tepe. The key might be Gobekli Tepe is not the only site in the area where Younger Dryas event evidence could exist. Recent slowdown in excavation activities and tree planting over specific regions have generated concerns. Officially, archaeologists contend that excessive simultaneous excavation can be detrimental and that future technologies may offer better means of site analysis. Some, though, think there could be other motives for postponing excavation. Renowned scholar Graham Hancock notes that Gobekli Tepe still features many unexcavated stone circles buried underground. He thinks it dubious that excavating has stopped mostly. Some believe such discoveries might contradict accepted historical accounts. Similar circumstances have occurred in the past. Scientists who post provocative ideas regarding cataclysms or ancient civilizations, such as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, often encounter strong resistance. Another scenario is that some archaeologists might not want to face data implying human civilization is far older than already believed. Similar constructions abound at nearby sites like Karahan Tepe, and some academics now refer to this as the T-shaped stone civilization, maybe spanning as far as Jericho. Should Gobekli Tepe expose even more ancient construction, history may be fundamentally rewritten. One of the first organized religions in the world, Zoroastrianism is an ancient Iranian religious system developed on the ideas of the prophet Zoroaster. Its beginnings are so far off that historians still argue over its precise age. Although the religion first shows up in written documents in the 6th century BCE, its roots probably go at least back to the 2nd millennium BCE. It most probably derived from far more ancient oral traditions even then. Zoroastrianism was the first religion to formally define concepts such as heaven and hell, judgment after death, messianism, angels and demons, and the constant fight between good and evil regardless of its precise age. As well as Greek philosophy, Zoroastrianism is clearly seen to have shaped Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism. Many of these traditions' central tales really rehash previous Zoroastrian tales. For example, the biblical narrative of Noah's Ark is quite similar to the Zoroastrian story of Yima from the Vendidad, a founding work of Zoroastrianism. Yima, a man, is cautioned of a coming disaster that will wipe off all living things on earth. Yima's catastrophe is a deep freeze rather than the flood Noah's narrative describes. O Yima, towards the sacred land will rush evil as a severe, fatal winter. Evil will rush as thick snowflakes falling in increasing depth, the book says. Yima is told to create an underground multi-level settlement, a self-sustaining city with water and plants, where he must bring 2,000 human couples together with every sort of animal rather than building an ark. Yima is to remain underground until the deep cold passes, wiping off the rest of the planet, much as Noah is waiting out the deluge. After many generations, Yima's people emerge from this subterranean metropolis at the end of the narrative, having survived the terrible winter and restored the earth. This begs a simple question. Does this not reflect a group surviving the 1,300-year-long Younger Dryas deep freeze? Spend some time stepping back to link the parts. Originating in Iran, a nation bordered by Turkey, Zoroastrianism is given that the first written records of the religion most likely came from far older oral traditions. It is quite likely they preserved the history and tales of Turkey and Iran. Could it so be that, as detailed in the ancient Zoroastrian Vendidad scripture, the subterranean cities strewn over Turkey were originally constructed as shelters to resist the severe circumstances of the Younger Dryas? If such is the case, then maybe following their survival through Gobekli Tepe, people return to the surface and mark their survival using a particular astronomical alignment engraved into the vulture stone, possibly even noting the precise date of the event. Think on what this might suggest. Proof of an advanced ancient civilization living long before any civilization noted in our history books today. More than 12,000 years ago, long before the Younger Dryas disaster. Finding such evidence would totally undermine the scientific establishment and change our knowledge of human civilization, where we came from and how we developed. Clues to this hidden past might yet be buried under Turkey's ground, waiting to be unearthed by a farmer, or a building project, waiting to change history as we know it. Be sure to check it out, though, as in one of our earlier movies, where we discuss the enigmatic Gunung Padang Pyramid in Indonesia, we demonstrated that pre-Younger Dryas civilizations might have flourished elsewhere. One thing is already abundantly evident regardless of what future discoveries bring. Human civilization's chronology goes beyond what conventional wisdom has long asserted. Gobekli Tepe shows that those who discount the Yonaguni Monument or Gunung Padang as proof of an ancient lost civilization merely because they believe human civilization did not exist so long back have no real knowledge how far our history really extends. Given this, the essential issue is not whether a civilization might have existed in the far past, but rather, if it did, who were they and what happened to them? Gobekli Tepe and the Younger Dryas comet impact theories challenge basic issues concerning the vanished civilizations that might have previously flourished and then been destroyed by catastrophic events, therefore transcending simple rewriting of human history. Should the vulture stone prove to be a record of this catastrophe, what other relics of this vanished planet might yet remain undiscovered? Mainstream archaeology has long held that Mesopotamian city-states started human civilization some 3000 BCE. The discovery of Gobekli Tepe by itself has destroyed that chronology by demonstrating that over 12,000 years ago, ordered society able of advanced construction and astronomical observations existed. What more might they have accomplished, though, if they were advanced enough to create monuments and record astronomical events? Turkey's large subterranean cities provide one of the most fascinating hints about the survival plan of a vanished civilization. The biggest of these underground colonies, Derinkuyu, stretches several levels down and may contain 20,000 people together with food supplies and animals. The engineering needed to create such a sophisticated underground refuge points to a degree of organization and foresight that runs counter to the picture of prehistoric hunter-gatherers. Although some experts contend that Derinkuyu may have been even older, maybe even dating back to the Younger Dryas period, archaeologists believe that it was constructed about 800 BCE. If so, this would signify that the underground cities were a considerably more serious threat and catastrophic event like the Younger Dryas comet impact than merely havens from invading armies, as conventionally understood. Under Zoroastrianism, the Vendidad book explains how subterranean shelters are built to withstand a lethal frost. Should the extreme chill mentioned in the Vendidad be the Younger Dryas cooling episode, then Turkey's subterranean towns could provide concrete evidence of this ancient survival tactic. Among those who sought cover in these subterranean shelters, could the residents of Gobekli Tepe? If true, their descendants might have arrived thousands of years later with the knowledge and customs of a long-gone civilization, traditions that would have shaped following civilizations, including the Sumerians, Egyptians, and early Indo-European societies. Though Gobekli Tepe offers concrete proof to support the theory of a lost civilization existing before documented history is not novel. This begs another issue. Where else might their influence be found if such an advanced society predated the Younger Dryas? Egypt is one option, long considered to be substantially older than accepted mainstream archaeology allows, the Great Sphinx of Giza. Given severe rainfall, the weathering patterns on the Sphinx's body seem to be the outcome of which construction would have occurred before the end of the last ice age, coinciding with Gobekli Tepe. Could the wisdom of this vanished civilization be reflected in the Sphinx and other megalithic constructions in Egypt? Likewise, although many experts believe the ancient city of Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, home to the enigmatic ruins of Puma Punku, has been dated to roughly 500 AD at Puma Punku, some of the stone blocks weigh more than 100 tons and exhibit amazing degree of accuracy in carving. Though some ideas propose it could have been the descendants of a pre-Younger Dryas society, the civilization in charge of this building is yet unknown. If the Gobekli Tepe architects were competent enough to watch celestial alignments and document cosmic happenings, astronomy would have been quite important in their society. The vulture stone's alignment with the star positions during the Younger Dryas points to not only documenting past occurrences, but also perhaps using the heavens as a guide for foretelling future disasters. Astronomy was highly valued in many ancient societies, including Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Maya civilizations. For instance, the Maya followed planetary motions with great accuracy, and their long count calendar appears to be based on cycles going far back, far earlier than their own society. Could pre-Younger Dryas society, passing on its knowledge across centuries, have started this astronomical path? Likewise, ancient Hindu writings account for great cycles of destruction and rebirth, whereby catastrophic events change the planet every few thousand years. These legends somewhat closely reflect what we now know about cosmic influences and changes in global temperature. Preserved in oral traditions for thousands of years, might these tales be far-off memories of actual events? Why Gobekli Tepe was purposefully buried approximately 8000 BCE is one of the biggest riddles worldwide. The sheer scope of the work needed to cover the whole facility with soil points to deliberate, methodical approach used. But why would an ancient society go to such great measures to bury their own monument? One idea holds that the founders of Gobekli Tepe, or their ancestors, were aware of another catastrophe approaching. Should they have gone through the Younger Dryas impact, they might have buried the place to preserve its knowledge for next generations and feared another cosmic occurrence. Gobekli Tepe might perhaps have been buried in line with a custom or cultural change. Older religious or ceremonial places are sometimes deserted or purposefully hidden as civilizations change. Should a new belief system develop, people in control might have aimed to forget the past. Whatever the cause, Gobekli Tepe's intentional burial amazingly preserved it, enabling modern scientists to reveal its mysteries thousands of years later. Should Gobekli Tepe and other ancient monuments point to an advanced civilization predating the Younger Dryas, our knowledge of human history must be drastically changed. It would suggest that civilization has roots at least 12,000 years, maybe even longer, not beginning with Sumer and Mesopotamia. This would also imply that humans have gone through several cycles of development and destruction, each of which mostly eliminates the successes of the preceding cycle. The vanished Younger Dryas civilization might have been only one of many others that preceded, each destroyed by cataclysms redefining human advancement. Should this is the case, what more proof might yet be waiting to be unearthed? Could additional historic cities lie buried under the sea, the forests of the Amazon, or the dunes of Egypt? Some scholars think that submerged constructions like those off the coast of India's Gulf of Kambat or Japan's Yonaguni Monument may be relics of such vanished civilizations. Ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery are exposing more about our ancient history as technology develops than ever before, suggesting that our history is significantly more complicated than we formerly believed. Experts have found evidence of hitherto unidentified communities and buildings buried under the ground in recent years. Searching for answers, archaeologists and independent researchers both keep visiting sites like Gobekli Tepe, Derinkuyu, and other enigmatic locations. Mainstream academia is still dubious, though, and frequently rejects ideas that contradict accepted wisdom. Still, the reality might be tough to completely hide indefinitely. Every such find strengthens the evidence for a vanished pre-Younger Dryas civilization. Should we be able to put the bits of our lost past together, we could at last find the actual source of human civilization, one that predated known history. The narrative of Gobekli Tepe and the Younger Dryas comet impact honors the intelligence and resiliency of past people rather than only changing history. Their legacy ought to be recognized if they could survive such devastating tragedies, retain knowledge, and reconstruct society.